And the second motion will be moved by Mr. Chanda of Kanchibiya constituency, and this one is simply titled Promote Countrywide Breeding of Monkeypox Tilapia. That in order to increase fish production, this House urges the government to promote the countrywide breeding of Monkeypox Tilapia. So those are the motions that are expected to be tabled on the floor of the House. So as we await for the Speaker's procession, we'll go through the questions that will be considered under Standing Order number 80.
Exactly, today. And the first question is question number 333, which will come from Mr. Lamek Hamwata, who is Pemba Member of Parliament, and is expected to ask the Minister of Justice in A whether the government is aware that officers at Moyo Local Court in Pemba District have deserted the premises, thereby rendering the court non-operational. In B, if so, what is taken to resolve the problem? And in C, when the court will be operational.
Mr. Kabaso of Mansabombe constituency will ask the Minister of Energy why Mansabombe District Hospital is still experiencing load shedding despite the President's directive to exempt health facilities from load management, and whether Zesco Management Limited will comply with the President's directive and exempt the hospital and all health facilities countrywide from load management.
And question 35 is expected to come from Mr. Bernard Kaningo, who is Kalushi Member of Parliament, and his question will be directed to the Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. He wants to know in A, when the construction of Samfia Road in Lubuto was in Kalushi Parliamentary constituency will commence, and in B, what the cost of the project is. So those are the questions that we expect the House to consider this afternoon.
Absolutely. So there are three of them under Standing Order number 80, and thereafter two motions to be moved today. The first one coming from Mr. Kangombe, and it's titled Request Large-Scale Mining Companies to Produce Electricity for Their Production, and the other one is going to come from Mr. Chanda of Kanchibiya, and it's titled Promote Countrywide Breeding of Monkeypox Tilapia. And so that's what the order paper looks like today. We sure hope that you're going to stay with us right here on Parliament Television. Just now we interest you to what is happening in the chamber as we wait for the Speaker's procession. Stay tuned.
No, but have you listened to the thinking?
The thinking is clear.
The thinking is very clear.
It can actually ease your pressures. Government can deal with the smaller entities. You don't know where? No, anymore. You know how I operate. No, there's no problem. Just tell me. Okay. So when I saw up, we will see each other. Tell me, I give you. Minister. Tell me, I give you. Where is he going? I'll keep them where? At the Black Mountain. I'll keep them at the Black Mountain or the Sober Market.
Honorable members of Parliament, Madam Speaker.
And the King of Zambia, proud and free, land of wealth and glory, unity, victors in the struggle for our rights. We want freedom's fight for One land and one nation is our cry. Dignity and peace in Zambia's sky. Like a noble eagle in its flight. Zambia, praise to the one, strong and free. Praise be to God, praise be, bless our great Zambia, Zambia, Zambia. Green and we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, praise to thee, O one, strong and free.
Prayer. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to consider with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of such important responsibilities in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider under our deliberation in so just and faithful honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Honorable members, I have two announcements to make. The first one, I wish to recognize the presence in the public gallery visitors from citizens of democratic governance in Lusaka district. On behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, I warmly welcome our visitors in our midst. Thank you. You may be seated. The second announcement, honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Shuttle Private School Limited in Lusaka district. On behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, I warmly welcome our visitors in our midst. You may be seated. Thank you. We now move to urgent matters without notice. The Honorable Member for Nakonde.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much to allow the people of Nakonde to raise this matter without urgent. Without notice.
Urgent matter without notice.
Urgent matter without notice, Madam Speaker. I know these people, they want to confuse me. Madam Speaker, this matter is directed at Her Honor, the Vice President. Madam Speaker, there is a video that is trending where our pupils have abandoned schools, classes, even after there is a demanding government that the government should reduce the cost of living. Just imagine, Madam Speaker, the pupils have gone into street protesting, giving guidance to the government that they should reduce the cost of living. And they have singled out Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, My worry is, I don't know where the children have gotten this wisdom to start organizing themselves, and they start protesting. And this, Madam Speaker, should worry the government, because we don't know how many pupils are planning that. And I wanted to find out from Her Honor the Vice President, Member of Parliament from and so forth, if, Madam Speaker, the government failed to deal with the cost of living, for now that the children have started organizing themselves, tomorrow, Madam Speaker, we'll find that the country will be on a protest. We want to find out what urgent measures is government going to take, especially that now it is the wisdom of the children who are protesting. Madam Speaker, I seek your serious guidance. I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Nakonde, when you an agent notice, you are supposed to be precise. You deal with one issue. You raised up a lot of issues. Cost of living, what measures the government is taking before the whole country rises up. It doesn't qualify. Please, honorable members, as you raise these matters, just refer back to Standing Order 143. It says clearly that these matters, when raising them, it only deals with only one issue. And you are supposed to raise it even within 2 minutes, but you went on and on, just explaining the matter which is also not clear. So, not admissible. We move to the Honorable Member for Lubasenshi.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for allowing the good people of Lubasenshi to raise the urgent public importance. And this one will go straight to Minister of Transport and Logistics. Madam Speaker, as you might be aware that just a day ago, this country saw, and it's spreading on the social media, where it's alleged that Jordan bus, which was traveling to South Africa, wrapped up. Eventually, some people were allegedly died. Now, my concern who are traveling using public transport in terms of safety, what measures is the minister together with the government are putting in place to ensure that the safety of our people who are traveling on the road day in, day out are really safeguarded. Therefore, I would like to find out from the minister what measures is put in place to ensure that the safety of our people is guaranteed. I seek your guidance, Madam Speaker.
I would rather you come up with an urgent question so that the matter can be attended to as soon as possible. Come up with an urgent question. The Honorable Member for Chitambo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the matter of urgent without notice is supposed to be targeted to the Minister of Health, but nonetheless, I will take it to the Vice President. Madam Speaker, in Chitambo, there broke Mpox. And the person who brought it there is a Tanzanian national. As I
brought
speak right,
what, Honorable Member?
Sorry?
You said the person brought what? I didn't get.
Mpox.
Okay.
Monkeypox.
Okay.
So, this person has been isolated from the public. Now, the situation why I'm worried, Madam Speaker, is that the Minister of Health to this extent, has not issued a statement regards to Chitambo district. As I speak to you, Madam Speaker, today there was an emergency meeting in Chitambo where some resolutions were passed. For example, the people guarding this person, the police, they need sufficient food and sufficient supplies of water. Also, transport, Madam Speaker, has become a challenge for officers to be going to see this patient every day. Madam Speaker, my issue is that I wanted the Ministry of Health to find a way of removing this person from Chitambo and take him back to Tanzania, where he comes from. Unlikely to keep him in Chitambo, where we might not know that might happen tomorrow, because we are told this disease can spread anyhow. Madam Speaker, I need your comfort over this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member, from what I get, it's just a request for that person to be taken to Tanzania, back to Tanzania. That is what I got from you. So it does not require a ministerial statement. Just to talk about, is it ferrying back or taking back that person to Tanzania? Can you maybe go and see the Minister of Health, since it's just a request, to see how that challenge can be attended to, so that your people also will be comfortable. I'm sure they are scared. So since it's a request, the Honorable Minister is around. And we had a ministerial statement, was it that other week, just before we went into committees, talking about the Mpox. Please, can you liaise with your medical staff in your area, together with the Minister of Health, so that a quick solution will be found? We don't know whether they will agree to take that person back to Tanzania. I don't know whether he's a Zambian, or maybe they will take other measures so that your constituency, the people in your constituency, will be safe. Sorry. The Honorable Member for Karurushi will come in tomorrow. According to our standing orders, we were just supposed to have 3 people. And I was just following the names on the list. Okay. We are politicians. I know once we start with the 4th person, even tomorrow and others will even take it politically. So we make progress, honorable members. Questions for oral answer under standing order number 80. The honorable member for Pemba.
Question 33, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Before the Honorable Minister of Justice comes in, there is an indication for a point of order. What is your point of order, the Honorable Member for Karurushi?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand on a point of order on the Minister of Local Government. I know, Papa. Minister of Tourism, and I honor the Vice President, using standing order number 71. Madam Speaker, we have a serious issue in our constituency. There are 72 families, as I speak, that are affected. And why I'm putting an order on my Papa there is because he's Minister.
Honorable
Minister, I withdraw. Honorable Minister of Local Government.
Honorable members, we only have members of Parliament in this House, no papas.
I withdraw, Madam Speaker. Why I'm putting a point of order on the Minister of Local Government? Because the councils are under his jurisdiction. I'm putting a point of order when I honor the Vice President, because disaster management is under her watch, the Minister of Tourism, because Chamber Bird Sanctuary is under his jurisdiction. Madam Speaker, it's been a month since Zawa had broken down houses that are bounded within the bird sanctuary. Madam Speaker, there are 72 families that are affected, and there are about 10 tents, so you have about 5 families in one tent. Government had assured them that they would relocate them, but as of now, there is nothing. I honor the Vice President. There is an outbreak of disease in that camp. There is no water. The children have diarrhea. The fathers, the mothers are coughing. The rains are here. These people will die because government has not put in any intervention. Minister of Local Government, you might not be aware, these families paid from as early as Kaunda's time, the UNIP era, to the council who had assured them that they will give them land before government put up title. My plea on behalf of these people, I honor the Vice President. The bird sanctuary has nothing. Are we going to save the birds that are flying, maybe there are 2 or 3, and allow human beings to die? As of yesterday, the tents that were given by the Copper Belt Minister have flown away. So you can imagine if they are going to have the rains tonight, and it's a sanctuary. There are anacondas, there are cobras in there. Madam Speaker, through you, should we allow people to die before we make an intervention?
The Honorable Member
My plea, my question is, what are we doing?
The Honorable Member for Kalurushi, now it has turned to be a question. It started by being a point of order, which has actually moved away from being a point of order. So it doesn't qualify as a point of order, and it doesn't qualify as a question. So the Honorable Member for Karuru should just find some other means of bringing that important matter to our Honorable Vice President. We have questions for oral answer, agent questions, and so forth. Find a better platform for that challenge that you have. Otherwise, your point of order is not admissible. We had started on questions for oral answer. That is question number 33. The Honorable Minister of Justice is supposed to respond. The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member of Pemba, Honorable Hamwata, asked the government whether the government is aware that officers at Moyo local court in Pemba district have deserted the premises, thereby rendering the court non-operational? And secondly, if so, what measures are being taken to resolve the problem? And of course, thirdly, when the court will be operationalized? And here are the responses, Madam Speaker. I wish to confirm to the Honourable Member of Parliament for Pemba, and indeed to the House, that there are no officers at Moyo Local Court in Pemba District, because the officers that were stationed there have actually been assigned to other courts due to the inhabitable infrastructure at Moyo Local Court, which need indeed urgent attention to be rehabilitated. The second question, the Honourable Member was asking whether what needs to be done, and in the midterm, the judiciary has in its midterm expenditure framework budget policy paper of 2025 to 2027 made a provision that all capital projects that were not completed will be completed. However, I'll be quick to note here, Madam Speaker, that the Pemba Local Court or Moyo Local Court will be considered also after the other capital projects have been worked on. And these ones actually respond to the third question. There were projects that had stalled from 2010 to about 2011, and they were retendered in 2022. So these will be the first one through the judiciary budget, and then after that, the Umoyo Court will actually also be considered. These are the measures that we have put in place. And lastly, however, in the interim, there is also something that is being worked upon, where the local leadership in the district are actually also exploiting other measures to find a building within the district, honorable member, that may be rented so that the courts can be brought back to being operationalized. These are the measures that we have put in place. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Supplementary questions. The Honorable Member for Pemba.
The good people of Pemba constituency would like to get a precise answer as to whether this local court or the infrastructure will be constructed in 2025. Is it on the budget?
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, as earlier alluded to, that indeed the judiciary has submitted in their budgets that all these courts that have either stalled or they need rehabilitation will actually be worked upon. So the rehabilitation is going to happen. However, the sequencing is that those that stalled from 2010 to 2011 were retendered in 2022, and that is where they will begin from. However, one, there is an alternative to rent another place within the district in the interim. And lastly, indeed, this Moyo local court has now been considered under those capital projects that needs to be rehabilitated. I submit.
The Honorable Member for Pemba.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I would like to know, on behalf of the good people of Pemba constituency, the scope of work. Is it going to include the water schemes, the houses for the officers?
Yeah. All the honorable members, did you get the question, Honorable Minister for Justice?
Yes, Papa.
The Honorable Minister of Justice. Okay, I think I had asked to say, did you get the question? I wanted to give you time so that the Honorable Member for Pemba could repeat himself.
Yes, ma'am. I think the member needs to repeat the question because the papa and the mama has now come to the grandma, and so I am lost. If he can repeat the question.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Pemba, please repeat your question.
Am I protected?
You are.
Thank you. The question to the Honorable Minister is, in terms of the scope, is the ministry considering to construct the staff houses for the officers and also provide water schemes to this facility that you are considering for 2025?
Before you come in, Honorable Minister, the Honorable Member for Chitambo, you are indicating for a point of order?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my point of order is pursuant to Standing Order 213-1. The Minister of Local Government, Madam Speaker, has come with his lunch in here, and he has continued chewing it in here. Of Local Government. Is the Minister of Local Government, Madam Speaker, in order to continue chewing in this house? Whatever is chewing me, I don't know. Madam Speaker, I need your serious ruling. Thank you.
Honorable Member, I'm looking at the Minister for Local Government. I can't see him chewing. I can't see him chewing anything, so we can make progress. The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honorable Hamwata. Again, we cannot dive into the scope of the works that will be done, Madam Speaker, given that I've just alluded to the fact that there were a lot of capital projects that need either to be completed or they need to be rehabilitated. And those that stalled from 2010 to 2011 were retendered in 2022. That is where the judiciary will begin from. And then, because this question was brought to us,
Order,
Madam Speaker,
honorable members, order. You may continue, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Because this issue has been brought to our attention, and because we are interested in ensuring that the people of Pemba are actually are serviced in terms of bringing justice closer to them so that there's no justice that is denied. At that point, the scope, whether there will be water rectification, electricity, and many other things will be considered then. But if we are doing rehabilitation, it's going to look different. If we are building a new structure, it's going to look different, and hence that will determine what kind of scope they will need. I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Ron.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and Honorable Minister. Thank you very much for the response. Now that you have confirmed, Honorable Minister, that the business at Umoyo local court in Pemba has been suspended and that the officers have been transferred to the nearest local courts, could you be in a position to confirm as to whether even the case records that were sitting, which were active at Umoyo local court, has also been transferred to the nearest local courts so that they can be exhausted? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, if the follow-up question from the Honorable Member from Roni, I thank you, is asking whether the cases also were actually taken to the nearest courts where these officers were assigned, correct? With that, Madam Speaker, I have to get back to the Honorable Member Hamwata. I think that is a good follow-up question because we don't want any cases to stall. And indeed, as Minister of Justice, in line with the judiciary, we will get back to the Honorable Member so that there are no cases that are delayed. The President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, has been categorical that he wants to make sure that whatever cases are brought to the courts are actually dealt with at a very expedient manner. So with that, I feel that it is a very important question that I have to get back to. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Magoye.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I just want to find out from the Honorable Minister, Pemba is situated about 63 kilometers away as you go to Choma. The issue is that the people around the Moyo area, they have to travel all the way from Pemba to Choma for them to seek justice. I want to find out from you, Honorable Minister, if there is any consideration of a building around Moyo area so that these people who were taken elsewhere, they can be brought back to ensure that at least justice is administered around that area. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Absolutely, Honorable Member. Once again, thank you for that follow-up question. I think I did allude to in my response right from the beginning that actually because of this issue that was brought to our attention, the judiciary has now engaged the local leadership there, and they have already engaged in searching for an alternative space where maybe they can rent out for now. But the long-term solution is that the people of Pemba deserve their local court to be brought back, and it's important that every time we are seeking justice, it's something that is accessible, and that means it's within the reach of our ordinary people in particular, and hence why, on the long term, we will be rehabilitating this very local court. But in the meantime, as already alluded to, we have begun to engage the local leadership, and that is the judiciary. I submit.
The last member, the Honorable Member for Kabwata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, I just wanted to find out, because you see the case of Monze is not the only one in terms of having infrastructures that are dilapidated. If you look at places like Manyinga, Kabompo, you go to Chinsali, Sina Zongwe, you still find the same problem of infrastructures that are not habitable for human beings. I just wanted to find out if it is possible, if you can encourage other members of parliament to resort to use CDF and put up infrastructure than wait for the ministry to fund that project.
The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Well, the Honorable Member of Kabwata, thank you very much. As you know, that CDF has increased to about, what, 36.1? Yeah, 36.1. So definitely, I'll just give you an example. In Kembe constituency, where I am the Member of Parliament, even as the Minister of Justice, that is the route I've taken, that I will use CDF to construct some of my local courts. So indeed, it's a great initiative, even though we do know that there are already capital projects that have been budgeted for. And when we presented the budget, actually, as we were going through as Minister of Justice, because we do represent on behalf of the judiciary, we did note these projects that have been stored for years, and the House would love to know. I used to sit in the parastatal committee, and we went around the country. Clearly, a lot of these projects did store, and now they've costed the government a lot of money. And this was before the UPND came to power. Many of these projects stored under the PF government, and it's very unfortunate that that happened. But as a progressive government and interested in justice for all people, we are embarking on completing or rehabilitating some of these poor infrastructure around the judiciary, especially the local courts. I submit.
Thank you. Next question, the Honorable Member for Mwansawombwe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 34.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member for Mwansawombwe is asking the Ministry a question in two parts. In A, why Mwansawombwe District Hospital is still part of the facilities that are load-shedded despite the presidential directives to exempt health facilities from load management. In B, when will ZESCO comply with the presidential directives and exempt the hospital and all health facilities countrywide from load management? Madam Speaker, our response is as follows. I wish to appreciate the question that has been asked, and I want to acknowledge that the hospital in question was being load-shedded. At that time, the hospital had no dedicated supply line feeder and was on a common feeder shared by main residential customers. I further wish to inform the August House that as of August 2024, ZESCO Limited had shifted the switch-off point in order to manage the load on the supply line to the hospital. I can confirm to the House that Mwansawombwe District Hospital is no longer under load management program. In B, Madam Speaker, I wish to state that this is a huge task, and my ministry through ZESCO is working tirelessly to have dedicated line to all public, district, provincial, and referral hospitals. Further, government will continue to implement the various measures that include rooftop solar systems to comply to the presidential directives. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Before we take in supplementary questions, there is an indication for a point of order. The Honorable Member, Honorable Anderek, you had the point of order?
Indeed, Madam Speaker, just a quick one, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to raise a point of order relating to strangers in the House. Strangers in the House, Madam Speaker. And the point of order, Madam Speaker, is that on the 27th day of June, 2024, the Constitutional Court of Zambia dismissed the petition of Honorable R.K. Chitotera MP, Honorable N. Chilangwa MP, Honorable M. Pakata MP, Honorable C. Kangombe MP, Honorable Aram Tare MP, Honorable B.M. Mundubile MP, Honorable S. Kampiongo MP, Honorable M. Fube MP, and Honorable M. Kafaya MP, on account that the Constitutional Court lacked jurisdiction and that the matter they raised in the Constitutional Court did not raise any constitutional matter requiring interpretation, as the matter was one relating to the political party where they belonged. As a result, the petition of the 9 honorable members were expelled from the Patriotic Front by their Secretary General, that is Morgan Ngona, failed. On the 2nd of July, Madam Speaker, 2024, based on the point of order that was raised by the Honorable Minister of Information and Media against the 9 PF MPs, the second Deputy Speaker then made a ruling announcing that a vacancy had occurred in the 9 constituencies. Madam Speaker, yesterday, the 15th day of October 2024, the Constitutional Court pronounced itself in the matter between the Electoral Commission of Zambia and Beremu Sivanze, and ruled that the election process, once triggered by the vacancy, must run its course. Must run its course until the election, and there is no extension that is provided for in the Constitution. Madam Speaker, there are members of Parliament that are affected by this decision, which by implication of yesterday's decision by the Constitutional Court, which is the Constitutional Court judgment under cause number 2024 CCZ 0017, ruled that the seats of the 9 MPs had run vacant by interpretation of this ruling. Madam Speaker, with the authority or leave of yourself, Madam Speaker, I will lay the judgments of the Constitutional Court of yesterday before the table in the August House. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, all the honorable members. I reserve the ruling to enable me to study the documents and other relevant information cited by the honorable member, and then I'll come back to this House with an informed ruling in due course. We make progress. We were about to get supplementary questions. The honorable member for Kamfinsa.
A point of order, Madam. Yeah.
The honorable member for Kamfinsa.
No, so I'm not on suspension.
Oh.
The honorable member for Nyimba.
Madam Speaker, I was waiting for an opportunity to speak.
For?
To ask a question, Madam Speaker.
So the minister, I think she responded. Did the Minister of Energy respond?
Question, Madam Speaker.
Because now we are getting supplementary questions.
Yes, that's the one.
And that's why I was calling you, but it's like you didn't want to.
The minister was distracting me, Madam Speaker.
Okay. You can go ahead. You can go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, the Minister of Energy, in responding to the question from the Honorable Member for Mwansabombwe, did indicate that initially there was a common supply going to the facility, which is the health facility, and government has attended to it. Madam Speaker, members of Parliament are representatives of our people, and I'm sure the Minister may not have all the adequate information. Has the Minister verified that now the health facility has got dedicated supply, and that supply is uninterrupted? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. We disturbed you twice. You may answer, and then I'll get the point of order from the Honorable Member for Shiwangandu. The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member. Madam Speaker, the answer is yes.
Just that?
Madam Speaker, I was being asked by the Honorable Member whether the information that I have given is confirmed. And I'm saying yes, the information is confirmed. That Mwansabombwe Hospital is not being load-shedded.
Thank you. That is better. There is an indication for a point of order from the Honorable Member for Shiwangandu. What is your point of order, Honorable Member?
Madam Speaker, thank you so much. Madam Speaker, our standing orders are very clear. That in here, we don't debate or refer to matters that are active before the courts of law. The standing orders are very clear. Madam Speaker, are we in order to start entertaining honorable members to pick judgments that fly from somewhere else and to make reference to a matter actively before the High Court of Zambia, where your own legal department has been participating actively, and the matter is pending judgment? Are we in order to allow the honorable member of Katombora, or entertain him even, to make reference to a matter which is actively in court and have it admissible by this institution? Are we in order, Madam Speaker?
The Honorable Member for Shiwangandu, again, our standing orders that you are referring to, they also indicate that you cannot raise a point of order on another point of order. And moreover, Honorable Member, I have ruled on the matter, order, Honorable Member. The Honorable Member for Shiwangandu, order. I have ruled on the matter. Order. I have already ruled on the matter. So whatever we find out, it will be read in this House. Whether the matter is active in court, because I even mentioned to say I'm going to study the documents and collect relevant information regarding the same matter, and I'll come back to the House. To even mention to say, no, this matter does not qualify because the matter is in court. So the ruling is just okay. I said I'll come back to this House to render my ruling. So, Honorable Member, my advice also, we are here to represent the people. Let's avoid emotions. Let's discuss. Let's debate. for the sake of our people in the constituencies. We are supposed to be one. Honorable members of parliament, representing the people of Zambia. We make progress. Supplementary questions? The Honorable Member for Nyimba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we've been with this issue for load shedding for some time now, and pronouncements have been made that we need to go solar on our very important institutions such as health institution. The question to the Minister, Madam Speaker, is that a good number of hospitals they do not have dedicated lines to power them throughout time during this hard time we have in terms of power. Is the Minister in a position to tell us when the powering of these hospitals using solar system will start? Because for now, it has taken time, Madam Speaker. We are going to the 6th or 7th month since we started facing these power shortages. Is the Minister in a position to tell us when the project of powering institutions such as hospitals will start? Because these are very important institutions in our lives. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member. Yes, Madam Speaker, the government is busy preparing on issues to deal with rooftop solar system for public institutions. Preparations are ongoing, and as soon as we are done, the honorable members will see government start implementing this rooftop solar system on public institutions. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Mwansabombwe.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I can confirm to what the Minister said. The new hospital, apparently which was being load-shedded, it has been not been load-shedded anymore. However, in Mwansabombwe we've got two hospitals, Mbereshi Mission Hospital and the new district hospital. Mbereshi Mission Hospital, unfortunately, they've continued load-shedding this hospital. And the Honorable Minister, there's been a presidential directive to say health facilities and hospitals are not supposed to be load-shedded. What is the ministry's position? Because this is a presidential directive, and I believe these are lives we are dealing with. How quick is the ministry moving to make sure that all health institutions countrywide are not load-shedded anymore? I submit.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, the Honorable Member. Indeed, Madam Speaker, I acknowledge that there are few hospitals that we have not yet given dedicated lines so that they are not load-shedded. And the ministry is, like I stated in my response in B, that measures are being put in place to make sure that even those few remaining are also given dedicated lines to manage the load management. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Chipiri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, you had made a statement earlier that 1st October we are going to see some changes. Is it the reason why you are assuring the Mwansabombwe that now you have changed your program of supply because Mamba Carriers have started supplying electricity? Are we going to see any changes? Thank you, Madam.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member. Indeed, Madam Speaker, if you flash back a bit there had been a very difficult with our utility companies to manage the hours that we stated that we are going to load shed. People were going into 3-4 days. But as I'm speaking to you, from the 1st October, there have been some stability in terms of managing the load shedding. So we are on course, and all the institutions, public institutions, we are going to make sure that we manage them so that services are delivered in our health facilities. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I'll get to the last two. The Honorable Member for Shiwangandu and the Honorable Member for Mwansabombwe. In that order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, taking advantage of the question posed by the Honorable MP for Mwansabombwe, we would like to find out from the Honorable Minister, because what is obtaining in Mwansabombwe is the case in many health institutions. Even here in Lusaka, recently you saw what was happening to level 1 hospitals. Can you be clear with us so that our members of the public are aware which hospitals? We have got general hospitals, we have got district hospitals, we have got level 1 hospitals, and we have got main hospitals. Which ones are you separating to have guaranteed power supply throughout, out of all these categories, so that we know why certain facilities are still facing the same challenge of not being supplied with power throughout? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member. Madam Speaker, like I have stated, that this is not an easy task, putting in mind the situation that we are going through. I wish to inform the House that 85% of our hydropower generation depends on water levels. And this country has been hit by drought, and the water levels have dropped. And what we are saying here is that because of those challenges, we have decided to do these health facilities in phases. The first phase that we have picked is district, provincial, and referral hospitals, where, such as UTH, if you want to know, and such as the Mwansabombwe he has mentioned, and the Honorable Member has confirmed that we are doing the best that we can to make sure that all our district hospitals are not load-shedded. And this is what we are doing. So we are going in phases in regard to what we have as a government. So the Honorable Member may wish to note that this government wishes to make sure that all our health facilities are supplied with power. But this can be done in phases because of the situation that we are going through as a country. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Mwansabombwe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what is even worrying people more is, for example, the President was in Wapula for about 3 days or so, in Zambia to be specific. And during that period, for 3 days, they had power throughout. 47 hours, they had power throughout. Immediately the President left, load shedding started. My question is, Madam Speaker, has the Minister of Energy considered with this, his counterpart from the Minister of Health, to take stock of these hospitals, how many have generators and the likes? I'll give an example of Mbereshi Mission Hospital. They have a very big genset, which looks almost new. But this genset has not worked for the past 3 years. I would like to find out if at all they are even looking into these things whereby there is a genset and then it's not been operating, just to help out when ZESCO power is not there. They can always rely on a generator. I submit, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member. Though, Madam Speaker, that sounds like a new question, but however, I'll try to respond that, Madam Speaker, this ministry is not working in silos. All government ministry, we are collaborating, including the Ministry of Health that he has just mentioned. We are working as a team, as one government, to respond to the challenges that we are facing as a country. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. We make progress. Next question. The Honorable Member for Kabushi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question 35.
The Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Member for Kabushi, Honorable Mr. Kanengo, is asking the Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development the following two questions. A, when the construction of Zambia Road in Lubuto, Kabushi Parliamentary constituency will commence, and B, what the cost of the project is. The answers, Madam Speaker, are A, the construction of the Zambia Road in Lubuto Ward in Kabushi Parliamentary constituency will commence when funds are available. B, the estimated cost of the works is 2,574,103 kwacha 15 ngwe. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Supplementary questions. The Honorable Member for Kabushi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for an opportunity. Madam Speaker, being an engineer, being a qualified engineer and competent one, I feel and think that 2,500,000 the minister has mentioned is not enough. Now my question is, Honorable Minister, will your ministry accept that 2,500,000 from CDF for you to complete the works in Kabushi?
The Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
Madam Speaker, the answer to that question is we don't even have to be asked. CDF money is government money, and if the ward development committees, the constituents feel that they need to fund the construction of this project using CDF, they are more than welcome to apply CDF onto that project, provided all procedures are followed. But for the sake of the Honorable Member and also the public, maybe a bit more information. The road condition survey conducted, this project goes back many years ago. This was conducted by RDA in 2009, which revealed that 6% of the urban and township roads were in poor condition. So to improve that, that is how the government then came with PEV Zambia 2000 project, which was conceptualized by the RDA. The primary objective was to improve the condition of the urban road network while simultaneously creating employment opportunities for Zambian youth. The project was officially launched in September 2013 under the implementation and supervision of RDA. This was expected to be implemented over a period of 5 years at an approximate cost of 6.9 billion kwacha. The project was targeted to pave approximately 2,000 kilometers of urban and township roads and associated public areas using segmented paving bricks and cobblestone technology between 2015 and 2019. The construction work started in 2014 on pilot basis in Lusaka's Chawama Township and at some selected public squares. Works at the Embassy Park and the Freedom Statue in Lusaka were constructed in 2016 at a total contract value of 19.71 million kwacha and 11.7 million kwacha respectively. However, in 2017, no significant progress in works had been recorded due to funding constraints. The total cumulative paved sections have remained a paltry 7.4 kilometers, achieved between 2015 and 2016. The Zambia Road in Lubuto ward of Kabushi Parliamentary constituency was one of the roads which were earmarked for development under the PAVE Zambia 2000 project. However, the project has since been discontinued due to lack of funds. The RDA has plans to complete the remaining 1.15 kilometers of the 1.5 kilometer stretch of the Zambia Road in Lubuto ward in Kabushi Parliamentary constituency, using force accounts subject to availability of funds. The scope of the remaining works is expected to be completed within approximately 2 months from the commencement date. The works include paving the 1.15 kilometer stretch using paving blocks, drainages, and auxiliary works. But we understand the need and the desire of the Honorable Member for Kabushi, and between himself, whether it is use of CDF funds or indeed using a force account, I think the works remaining ought to be done, and let him continue to liaise with us so that we can finish this particular project. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
The last member, the Honorable Member for Kwacha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, the people of Kabushi, they are crying for the road to be done. That road has been in bad shape for a very, very long period of time. And you have indicated rightly in your response that it will be done as soon as funds are made available. How soon, Honorable Minister? Will it be under the 2025 budget, 2026 budget? Be specific so that the people of Kabushi can have a relief. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
The Honorable Member for Kwacha is a twin brother to the Honorable Member for Kabushi, because they came to this house on the same day. So it's good to see that they're supporting each other. How soon? That must be left to the Honorable Member for Kabushi as he interacts with us as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Notice of motion, the Honorable Member for Kamfinsa.
Madam Speaker, notice is hereby given that I wish to propose a motion before this August House urging government to request large-scale mining companies to produce electricity for their production.
Is the motion seconded?
It's duly seconded.
Seconded by the Honorable Member for Luapula. The question is that this House urges the government to revise mining regulations to provide for large-scale mining companies to produce at least 50% of electricity needed for their production. Any debate? The Honorable Member for Kamfinsa.
Madam Speaker, allow me first of all to place on record my personal gratitude and gratitude on behalf of the people of Kamfinsa constituency for the opportunity presented to me today to present this very, very important motion, Madam Speaker. A motion, Madam Speaker, that has to trigger a public conversation around what qualifies to be a short-term solution, what qualifies to be a medium-term solution, and, Madam Speaker, what qualifies to be a long-term solution. Madam Speaker, you are aware, and I'm very certain that the members of this August House are fully aware, that we have an energy crisis in our country today. And obviously, Madam Speaker, we need to take steps that will prevent this particular crisis from reoccurring in the foreseeable future. Madam Speaker, we can spend the whole day today apportioning blame. We can spend the whole day today, Madam Speaker, apportioning responsibility as to why we are here today. But I want to be part of those that will contribute to the possible solutions moving forward and ensuring that come 5, 10, 15 years from now, Madam Speaker, we will all be discussing solutions that we propose today. For avoidance of doubt, Madam Speaker, what am I proposing? Madam Speaker, my proposal today simply suggests that if we have a mining company such as First Quantum Minerals that has a demand of around 400 megawatts, Madam Speaker, my proposal is saying, can we allow First Quantum Minerals to set up their own power generation units to be able to generate 50% of their power demands? In simple terms, Madam Speaker, half of the power that is needed by each mining company should be generated by that mining company. Then the remaining 50%, Madam Speaker, the other players that are actively participating in the sector can actually take it up. And I'll give specific examples, Madam Speaker. ZESCO produces power, CEC buys power from ZESCO, and they feed it to the mining sector. That is for the Copper Belt province. For the Northwestern province, Madam Speaker, ZESCO produces the power and sells the power to all the mines in the Northwestern province. Currently, Madam Speaker, the commodity called electricity is not available. So in terms of what we need to do, Madam Speaker, ZESCO today is facing a very huge challenge of having the resources to generate the power that they need to sell to the mining companies. And as a net effect, Madam Speaker, the energy that is supposed to go to the mining sector, unfortunately, is not available. Do we fold our arms, Madam Speaker, waiting for a solution that is not in sight? Madam Speaker, I want to be part of that solution. And that is why today, Madam Speaker, my proposal sits with the technology that is available. And I'll give two examples, Madam Speaker. In Ndola, we've got a company called Dangote Cement. Madam Speaker, Dangote Cement currently is generating its own power. They get coal from Mamba in Sinazongwe. They take the coal into Ndola. They pulverize the coal, feed it into their engines, Madam Speaker, and Dangote is able to produce their own electricity. This is technology that is available. Is there another example, Madam Speaker, of a mining company that is generating its own electricity? Yes, Madam Speaker, there's a company called Chambeshi Copper Smelter. Chambeshi Copper Smelter, Madam Speaker, on the Copper Belt province, is able to generate their own electricity from the waste heat that is produced from the boiler units. Is this, which I'm proposing today, Madam Speaker, from a historical perspective, has Zambia ever produced its own electricity in its mining setup? Madam Speaker, this is the technology that has existed in all our mining companies on the Copper Belt for the last 30, 40 years. So as I stand here, Madam Speaker, I am not proposing something that cannot take place. What I'm proposing basically, Madam Speaker, is that can we bridge this gap that we have today? We implement a medium to long-term solution, a solution that will allow ZESCO to provide electricity to our industrial area. There are companies that are producing maheo, there are companies that are producing millimil. ZESCO needs to provide power to those particular companies. Can we allow mining companies, since they have access to finance? Today, a mining company, Madam Speaker, can go and borrow funds at a very low interest rate and be able to set up a power generation unit. They produce 50%, Madam Speaker. We allow ZESCO to provide and other players the remaining 50%, and we allow ZESCO to concentrate on all these other sectors that need to be supported with energy. And secondly, Madam Speaker, and very importantly, you are aware, Madam Speaker, that the policy in the energy sector has changed. This government that is currently running the affairs of our country did announce an open access policy. An open access policy, Madam Speaker, which sits well with the proposal that I'm making today. The proposal that can we allow the mining giants, and I want to qualify my motion, Madam Speaker. We are not discussing small-scale mining companies. We are saying, can we engage the mining companies that have the capacity, speak to them, make them look at the numbers, and ensure that we are able to produce electricity, which electricity, Madam Speaker, will support the mining operations. Currently, Madam Speaker, and for avoidance of doubt, First Quantum Minerals is importing close to 65% of their power. Now, when you are importing power, Madam Speaker, using ZESCO infrastructure, it means that you are spending dollars, meaning the resources are there for First Quantum. Instead of importing power, we set up a power generation unit in Solwezi. We set up another power generation in KCM. We set up another power generation unit, Madam Speaker, at Mopani, so that instead of these mining companies importing huge sums of money being spent on importing power, Madam Speaker, we set up those units in our country. My proposal, and I'm sure those that are familiar with mining operations on the Copper Belt will agree with me that this proposal that I'm making is exactly how our mining companies were designed in the early 30s, in the early 40s, and in the early 50s. Every mining company, Madam Speaker, needs to be engaged on the possibility of producing 50% of their electrical power needs. Madam Speaker, I do hope that this proposal will be supported by this august House. I thank you.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
I wish to speak now, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Luapula.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I move to second the motion, request for large-scale mining companies to produce electricity for their consumption. Madam Speaker, this motion has been competently moved by Engineer Christopher Kangombe, an engineering fellow of impeccable reputation, with high-end credentials in economic policy management, and a strong will to contribute solutions when a country has a crisis. Madam Speaker, it is an undeniable fact that Zambia has an energy crisis. And this energy crisis has severely affected the well-being of the social and economic factors of the country, especially our largely impoverished society. Madam Speaker, the impact of the severeness of this energy crisis on small businesses is tragic. Small businesses, Madam Speaker, are not able to do their day-to-day production and earn a reasonable livelihood to sustain their household needs, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having established the gravity of the national crisis in energy, the gist of this motion, Madam Speaker, is to provide an interim solution to mitigate the adverse effects and hardships which has been triggered by this crisis, which continue to affect our larger society. Madam Speaker, before I proceed, I would want to put it on record that I'm a strong believer in affirmative national intervention. So my support of this motion is neither validation
nor is an endorsement of ruthless foreign investment. Madam Speaker, the fact remains that mines, the large multinationals in the mining sector, make huge profits which they conceal in back propagation, algorithm, deceit. Madam Speaker, it is prudent to state that these multinationals have the capacity to exploit and invest in renewable energy and be able to sustain their 50% contribution of energy from their internal sources. They also have the capacity to shop around vis-à-vis which technology is most appropriate depending on their allocation. As I make this appeal, Madam Speaker, it's with full cognizance that from the basic business fundamental economic standpoint of view, mine's core business is mining the ore. But in a crisis like this, we have a responsibility to make an earnest appeal for them to diversify and invest in the energy requirement and release 50% of their energy requirement to the rest of the country, especially the small businesses which have been hardly hit. It's also worth noting, Madam Speaker, that the bulk of our people in markets doing basic rudimentary business activities live on a hand-to-mouth basis, so any disturbance in their business affects the entire welfare of the family. It is also important to state that the power generated in this country, over 50%, is utilized in our mines, which, to the best of my knowledge, still has a component of subsidy. This motion, Madam Speaker, is in good faith and national interest, and therefore it requires the support of this House. Madam Speaker, a lasting business built on shared success, because collaboration is essence of partnership. In conducting international business, Madam Speaker, internationally accepted principles include, among others, transparency, trust, partnerships are universal unless an investor is morally insensitive. This change, Madam Speaker, is a shared path of equity. Sorry.
Yeah.
As I proceed to conclude, Madam Speaker, I would like to urge all members of this House to support this motion and state that the use of Constituency Development Fund to resolve a national catastrophe in the energy sector is inappropriate, unthinkable, and the line ministry must pronounce itself by standing up and clear the narrative that a calamity of this magnitude cannot be solved by Constituency Development Fund, and to the best of my knowledge, there is no country on this earth that has utilized a fund from a constituency for a member of parliament, which should ideally ease or mitigate the social needs of a constituency, as a solution to this unfortunate catastrophe. With that said, Madam Speaker, I beg to support the motion, and I beg to second the motion, and I beg to move. I thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? The Honorable Member Fonkana.
Madam Speaker, for me, I love to have very candid conversations. Except as I start to make my submission, I'm very worried because here, through this motion, we are trying to work as partners in trying to find solutions to a problem that is almost crippling our economy. The man who should be responding to this issue, the Minister of Energy, is not here. He's not here, Madam Speaker. That is where the problem starts,
You may continue, Honorable Member.
Madam Speaker.
That part will come at the end when I'm going to ask the Minister of Energy to respond.
Madam Speaker, the energy crisis has hit this country so hard that many have been left confused, but many have seen an opportunity to cash in. Those who are selling solar are cashing in. Madam Speaker, in here, we are tasked to find solutions to problems that confronts this country. For me, I see this energy crisis to be an opportunity for us to sit down to find solutions not for today or tomorrow, but for the future. Many times, Madam Speaker, we who sit on your left have been challenged to come on board with solutions to the problems that confronts this country. Today, through Honorable Kangombe, we have come to the table with what arguably for me seems to be one of a solution that we can bring to the table in addressing this problem called the energy crisis. Madam Speaker, many statements have been made in regards to what the real situation is in regards to the energy crisis. For avoidance of doubt, the energy situation in Zambia is such that, all things being equal, we have installed capacity to produce 3,700 megawatts. Our peak demand today, Madam Speaker, stands at 2,400 megawatts. The Ministry of Energy has made these projections, namely that in 2025, our demand will rise to 3,338 from 2,400. In 2030, our national demand will rise to 5,432. In 2040, it will rise to 8,600. But in 2050, our national demand will rise to 11,039 megawatts. What does this tell us? Madam Speaker, this scenario, as told by the experts in the Ministry of Energy, demands that we must think outside the box. Whereas today, we are looking for interventions, namely going to alternative sources, solar, thermal, and the like. The projections in terms of future demands requires that we must do much more than what we are doing today. The Honourable Member of Parliament for Kamfinsa has raised a motion, moved a motion that is saying, let us revise our mining regulations to provide for large-scale mining companies to produce at least 50% of their electricity needs for their production. Like Honorable Kangombe says, Madam Speaker, this is not a strange proposition. This is something that is already happening. Dangote today does not need to go to ZESCO for its electricity needs. They've already set up their power production plant. The Chambishi Copper Mining Company is also doing likewise. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Energy has come to tell this August House before that our deficit was standing at 1,300 megawatts. That deficit, Madam Speaker, is what was making us get 3 hours of power in a day. The Minister of Energy has also come back to this August House to tell us that government has employed interventions, namely importation of 450 megawatts. Now, our deficit, because we need to have a very candid conversation, very honest conversation. If our deficit was standing at 1,300, and then you, first of all, started by saying we have recorded exports, 290 exports. That to me should reduce the deficit. The Minister of Energy has said we are importing 450 megawatts. That should further reduce our deficit. Mamba Corrales has finished its maintenance. 150 megawatts has also come on board. If you add that, that is 890 megawatts of power that has now come on grid. It should reduce our deficit to about 410 megawatts. Today, Madam Speaker, our people are still having 3 hours of power. When we were at 1,300 megawatts, as announced by the minister, he told us we are going to be having 21 hours of load shedding. Today, we have reduced the deficit according to his pronouncements. We are now supposed to remain at 410 megawatts deficit. We are still going with 3 hours of load shedding. In some places, they are not even receiving any hour of power supply. What does this say, Madam Speaker? The Ministry of Energy today continues to prioritize mining companies in terms of supply of energy, electricity. These mining companies, Madam Speaker, can access this power from outside. They have the financial power to access electricity in imports. You are a government today that prioritizes somebody who has the capacity to go and import at the expense of the poor people who cannot afford to set up their own plants, who cannot afford to go and import. Today, this government, through the Minister of Energy, prioritizes foreigners in exports at the expense of the people who cannot afford to import, at the expense of people who cannot afford to set up their own plant. Strangely, these our colleagues keep on asking our people to buy solar. With what money? Our people are barely surviving. What more with a high cost of living? People cannot afford to set up solar. The consolation should lie in ZESCO being able to provide power for the needs of our people. What Honorable Kangombe is saying is that if you look at the projection of demand in the near future, we need to do much more, which is why Honorable Kangombe is saying the bigger boys in the economy must be able to produce their own power, at least 50% of their power needs, because that will address the challenge we are having now. That will also add to the interventions we must be employing for the future. Madam Speaker, there is nothing strange. This is not a political motion. This is a motion where we on the left side, Madam Speaker, are coming to the table amidst the cause that we must come up with solutions. This, Madam Speaker, looks like the perfect solution to the impending disaster, because after this, Madam Speaker, we will fail to survive. Industries today are closing up, Madam Speaker. Small businesses, saloons, barber shops, small producing industries are closing up. The Minister of Energy is prioritizing big mining companies that have got a financial capacity to be able to import. Honorable Kangombe is simply saying, let these players come on board and help government in finding long-lasting solution to our crisis in the energy sector. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Honorable Member for Chiruvi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are at a station where the mines referred to, especially that the mover of the motion, whom I would like to thank so much, has used the word large-scale mining. We are at the station where we are asking the nation that this large-scale mining, Madam Speaker, can I be protected from that noise coming from there? Very sensitive with noise. We are at a station where we have gone back to the time of Cicero roads. Madam Speaker, why I say we have gone back to the time of Cicero roads is that much of what has been referred to in the motion, which is the large-scale mining, is in the hands of people who have come through foreign direct investment. Madam Speaker, those that have cared to read mining history in Zambia, we know that the gentleman called Cicero Rhodes and the German guy who were interested in our mining, our minerals, they had proposed to build a rail line from Livingston to Copperbelt in 1906, meaning they demonstrated a pedigree that this is a lucrative business. That is my starting point. And we are back to that station because Zambia nationalized the mines in 1969 and merged the mines in 1982. Serious mining in Zambia, Madam Speaker, started with the opening of Luansha mine, of course, and followed by Rokana in 1933, in Changa 1939, then Chiburuma 1956, and Bancroft, as it was called then, in 1957, and other mines followed. If you look at the production attached to the energy consumption then, you find that these mining companies have been consuming more energy in terms of fuel, in terms of electricity. Madam Speaker, I would like to address this question in line with production. We are not taking away anything, as I have already demonstrated, that we cannot survive without mining activities. From the time of before the colonialists came in, Cicero was dominating the environment. Zambia, as it was called that time, it was not even called Northern Rhodesia, was surviving on mining. And we are emphasizing that we want to continue surviving on mining. If we want to continue surviving on mining, which is adding on the export value, if you go into the export value, the mining industry, specifically copper, is responsible for 65% to 71% of export value. And if that be the case, it means that we are embracing the factor that it contributes to the mining sector. And if it does contribute to the mining sector, there is another way where it is taking away from the energy sector. And if Cicero built rail line into 1906, and technology has advanced, and the mining in terms of production is also increasing in terms of war and discovery, and technology has advanced, the mining, large-scale mining, can equally produce electricity, especially that what the motion is asking for is 50%. What does that do to government? It lifts the pressure from government. It lifts the pressure from government. Government right now, because of this crisis, which I made us call a warning crisis, because we have just been warned, we may have a serious crisis worse than this, is trying to see how it can distribute this power so that all of us and production can go on in the nation. The motion is suggesting only 50% of what they consume. Then they should be responsible for that. That's what the motion is asking. And if the motion is asking for that, is it asking for too much? The answer is no. Do they have the capacity to produce that? The answer is yes. And if they have the capacity, I do remember during Mr. Sata's time, there was a debate about diesel subsidies. It was discovered that actually much of the diesel in Zambia, 80% of the diesel in Zambia was consumed by mining activities. And it was seen economically viable that we should get rid of the 25% then of the diesel subsidy. I want to emphasize, Madam Speaker, that we are again back to this station. And this will mean that government will have the capacity to direct the energy into the primary industries as well as secondary industries, these which are growing. The notion has segregated the nature of industry. It has said large scale. Large scale goes with capacity. Meaning, Madam Speaker, if we are to use the Lambaza language, I was born from the copper belt, Bali Pompa. Meaning, Madam Speaker, that they have the power to do what? To generate. And they are making profits. Madam Speaker, we know, it's not a secret, that the mining sector is prone to issues of capital flight. It is also prone to issues of under-declaration of the minerals. Now, if this is a scenario, and we are only asking that this power we currently generate largely from hydropower, they should be responsible for 50% of the power that goes into the production, so that they lift the pressure from government, so that government can distribute to the citizens who want to grow into the small and medium enterprise, so that they can have the impetus to contribute to the GDP. When the mining sector also contributes to the GDP. It's a black-even arrangement, Madam Speaker, where we need to register economic growth and fair play, because these people, the large scale, many of them are through the window of foreign direct investment. And as a nation, we cannot afford a situation where they are consuming the power and government is under stress in a period like this one, and then we also leave them from like at us 50% production, where they should take the mantle and say we are producing for this. That will also, on the other way, mean that they would be very responsible in terms of declarations, because they'll feel the pain of production, because they are adding to the tools that produce the copper, and which later on converts into a finished product. So, Madam Speaker, the debate or the discourse before us, it is to support the spinal cord of Zambia, because Zambia relies on copper, and with that we appreciate. Even the large-scale mining we are talking about, they add a lot of value to our economy. But we are all asking them, please produce 50% of what you consume in production. And that being the case, it is a non-controversial motion. It is a very economic motion which is supporting the very standing of our nation, because we depend on copper. Madam Speaker, with these few words, the people of Chulubi would like to rest their case.
Thank you. We'll mix voices. Before the Honorable Member for Chimwemwe comes in, I will invite the Honorable Member for Zambezi East.
Madam Speaker, I sincerely thank you for the opportunity to debate the motion that was coined by the Honorable Member for Kamfinsa, Engineer Kangombe, who is now an economic policy trained man. And being conversant with economic policy management, I'm sure he understands that any decisions that we make will definitely affect the economy. And that suggestion is coming out of a realization of a crisis that has bestowed us, that we have a power deficit in the country. Yes, we acknowledge we have a challenge in terms of generating enough power which will satisfy every sector that requires its use. However, making a suggestion of the mining sector to produce 50% of the power that they need to consume would be a tall order, and for the following reasons. That's the reason to why I'll oppose this motion, which to me, of course, the motion comes in innocently, and it's good to have such motions because you can now deduce that people are thinking and are making suggestions because of a situation and to look for solutions. It is suggesting a solution. However, this is what it could do to affect the economy. The idea could sound good on paper, but implementing it would affect the following. You see, ZESCO is a very important institution. Arguably, I would argue that it could be our biggest parastatal organization in the country. That being the case, it means it's an institution that adds quite a lot to the GDP of this country. Not only through maybe the energy sector, you are talking of human resource. How many people are employed by ZESCO, depending on that institution. And for those employees to be paid, it means ZESCO takes revenue from its clients to whom it supplies its product or its service, which are the mining sector. More than 50% of ZESCO's power is consumed by the mining sector. So that being the case, it means the mining sector is so cardinal to ZESCO's existence. So a decision like that, we would be effectively agreeing to say, let us destroy ZESCO. Who among us here would come up with such a wild decision to destroy ZESCO? Secondly, That's about economy. That's why I actually argued on the matter of how it affects the economy. So that being the case also, I'll give this illustration. Madam Speaker, when you want milk, you don't need to own a cow in order for you to have milk. When you want to have milk, you will get those who are experienced in owning cattle that can produce the milk. You will still have the milk. And this is the philosophy that these mining sectors use. In the modern world,
there's an indication for a point of order. The Honorable Member for Rumezi, what is your point of order?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This House is guided by the rules. First of all, before I cite Standing Order 71, it is the wish of the people of Lumezi that we take this House to Part 2 of the Republican Constitution. Basis of economic policies. On Part 2, national values, principles, and economic policies, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member on the floor debating this very important motion has deliberately decided to mislead himself, the people of Zambezi, the people of the Republic of Zambia, by not paying particular attention to the constitutional provisions, Madam Speaker, on basis of economic policies. That's 10 clause 1 of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. Madam Speaker, I make emphasis on the Constitution because we also our allegiance to the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia is in order, therefore, to mislead and betray the Constitution that he sought to defend and protect. I seek your serious indulgence, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Rumezi, the point of order actually, I'm not getting it straight exactly to point out what has been breached. However, my ruling is that, honorable members, let us try to stick to the motion, and also a reminder that honorable members are free to debate. So there's still time for honorable members to debate, so that you give us your views. And then at the end of the debate, we are going to ask the Honorable Minister to respond. I'm sure the Honorable Minister is taking down notes so that he can respond to all the issues that will be raised. So, honorable members, let's take this opportunity. Let's put our notes together, each one of you, especially those that want to debate, and just indicate so that we hear your views. So we make progress. The Honorable Member for Zambezi East.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for allowing me to continue with the debate. I will not be distracted by that point of order. The point I was trying to make is this. Madam Speaker, this is the illustration I wanted to make. When you need milk, you don't need to own a cow in order for you to have the milk. There are experts that keep cattle from whom who can milk, and then you can have the milk. And in the modern way of doing business these days, services are usually outsourced. The mining sector, if their focus is to extract minerals and sell them, that is their focus. They will get the services from ZESCO in terms of the power, or other players in the economy who are supplying this electricity. Asking them to start producing electricity is actually asking them for too much. because they will need to establish infrastructure, which is costly. They will need to employ experts in that area in order for them to have electricity. At the end of the day, what they need is the electricity. What you need is the milk. You don't need to own a cow because of the inconveniences that the cow can cause in your house. You don't need to own the whole cow in order for you to have milk. You can simply go to the market and buy the milk. This is the situation here. When you need electricity, you don't need to own a quota of the ZESCO. All you need is to buy the electricity from ZESCO. And therefore, the debate is over. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Chimwemwe.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. May I also thank the mover of the motion. Madam Speaker, I believe that the mover of the motion comes from the Copper Belt, and the mining sector is something that is passionate about. Madam Speaker, it is true that the mines need dedicated power. Madam Speaker, the mines without dedicated power, they face a lot of challenges. Madam Speaker, there are challenges like lost time production. The equipment, Madam Speaker, could get damaged. Madam Speaker, what we're looking at as a nation is to ensure that the mining sector starts producing 3 million tons. Madam Speaker, for them to be able to give us that 3 million tons, Madam Speaker, they need to...
Order, honorable members. The honorable member for Chimwemwe is debating. What now?
Can I continue, Madam Speaker?
You may continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, like I was saying, the mines need all factors that will help them reach their production. And electricity is one of that factor. Madam Speaker, we cannot blame ZESCO, we cannot blame anybody, because what we have right now is power that we can't have because we depend on hydro. Madam Speaker, we cannot expect ZESCO to give us the power that the mines need year in, year out. Madam Speaker, what we need is, Honorable Kangombe is dead on point. The mines need to start producing their own power. Madam Speaker, I'll give very good examples like in South Africa. We have Anglo-American, we have Impala Platinum and Sibanye Still Waters. Madam Speaker, South Africa is also undergoing similar situations that we have. They have a power crisis. Theirs, Madam Speaker, is mainly because of the equipment that they have that generates power that's old. As a result, Madam Speaker, they've lost production, and because of that, Madam Speaker, they've decided to go into renewable energy as mines. As I'm talking, Madam Speaker, a report by the Mineral Council of South Africa says the 3 mining companies, Madam Speaker, will be producing 2,300 megawatts of power. This is power, Madam Speaker, to help them cushion the impact on the energy crisis. Madam Speaker, you will agree with me that Anglo-American is a very large mining corporation, and they do heavily invest in research. Madam Speaker, whenever they bring up any new mining methods, the whole world of mining listens to them. Madam Speaker, if Anglo-American can actually go this way, the way Honorable Kangombe is suggesting, Madam Speaker, then that's the best way. Madam Speaker, I wish to disagree with Honorable Member from Solwezi, is it Zambezi East, when he says we are trying to kill ZESCO. Madam Speaker, ZESCO has already told us that the tariffs fetching or obtaining locally are the lowest. However, Madam Speaker, if they export the power, Madam Speaker, they're making more. So we are not killing ZESCO because ZESCO will be making more. Madam Speaker, another question is, if the mines start producing their own 50% power, what will happen to the other 50% that the Zambian suppliers of energy are supplying to the mines? Madam Speaker, I'm one of those advocates that advocate for Zambian suppliers, contractors, that we need to give them all the business, if anything, because, Madam Speaker, local investment, Madam Speaker, brings back the money back into the country. Foreign investors, Madam Speaker, that come into the country are actually borrowed investors. What they do is, Madam Speaker, they will get their money and invest back home. Madam Speaker, so the question is, what will happen to that Zambian supplier that gives ZESCO the power? Madam Speaker, this is where now that supplier should be given an opportunity to actually export that power. But how do they export it, Madam Speaker? Because they obviously need transmission infrastructure. ZESCO, Madam Speaker, has already got transmission infrastructure. That's why, Madam Speaker, going forward, we need legislation that will ensure that that infrastructure, in case, Madam Speaker, our children in the future decide to sell off ZESCO to private individuals, but that infrastructure, Madam Speaker, should remain as government infrastructure. Because, Madam Speaker, already the government is talking about net metering business people. Net metering business people, Madam Speaker, need the same infrastructure if they have to export their power. Madam Speaker, this is the whole thing that Honorable Kangombe is talking about, is let the mines supplement the power by producing their own 50%. The other 50% will definitely come from the local suppliers. Madam Speaker, and the other 50% that remains with the local suppliers, of course, our job is not to kill the local supplier, Madam Speaker. It's actually to encourage the local supplier, because the economy of the country, Madam Speaker, can only grow if we grow our own industries. So, Madam Speaker, we should ensure that that local supplier who's been enjoying selling the power to ZESCO should also enjoy to export the power, in fact, at a higher rate than they were selling at the mines. Because the whole idea, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that the government has got the power, the mines have got the power, and every supplier of energy has got the power and the resources. Madam Speaker, with all few words, Madam Speaker, I wish to support the motion. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Skongo.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to add a word on this motion. To start with, Madam Speaker, allow me to mention that some motions look very well on paper. But when you get into the details, then you discover that actually the motion is actually nothing. This motion, Madam Speaker, is what we call a BID, a brought-in debt, in the sense that when it comes to the mining sector, Madam Speaker, the New Dawn administration has done a very good job in trying to bring the mining sector from the graveyard where it was under the PF to where it is now, doing very well. So we are not going to allow a situation where negative policies are entertained to come and take us back to where mining companies were closing, others were almost big companies were deciding to go back. But due to the good policies of the New Dawn administration, we have seen a resurgence in the mining sector. Now, the mining companies are here to do business. I think that's very important to mention. They are not here to come and give us free things. So, when you're doing business, one of the biggest aspects that you have to take into consideration is the aspect of cost. So, mining companies have come to mine, and I think that's their core business. So, we are not going to allow a situation where we give mining companies another added responsibility, another huge cost to generate electricity. And also, we have to be mindful of the fact that Zambia is not the only mining destination that is there in the world. There are other countries that have got minerals. So we are not going to chase mining companies to come to Zambia or make Zambia unattractive due to bad policies that we're going to put in place. So to compel mining companies to produce electricity, I think it will not be the best of decisions to make. However, where a mining company feels that it has the capacity...
Order, Honourable Member. What is your point of order, Honourable Member? For?
Madam Speaker, I rarely raise on point of orders against any member, but I'm compelled, following the usage of the word compel, that has been referred to by the Honourable Member for Sikongo. Madam Speaker, my motion is requesting mining companies, large-scale mining companies. Is the Honourable Member for Sikongo in order in his debate to mislead the people that are following this conversation that the proposal is actually demanding or compelling, when the wording in my proposal, Madam Speaker, is request? Standing Order 71.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Sikongo, please just be mindful of the words that you are using. The mover of the motion actually, what I'm reading here, it says request large-scale mining companies. So you can just be mindful of that. No.
So thank you so much, Madam Speaker, and I'm guided. But in this case, the government does not request. This has to be done through a policy directive. So in a way, it is compelling them to do that. So what I was saying is, in this country already, we have got mining companies that feel they have the capacity to produce power aside the mining activity that they are doing. So if a company feels it can do that on its own and it will not incur losses, I think that should be allowed to continue. However, this new donor administration, if you have looked at the way we are doing our business in this country, I think it's different from what we are seeing in the past. We have come here to solve problems in a sustainable manner. This is a government that is forward-looking. If PF, for example, the time that they were in power, the 10 years that they were in power, they knew that electricity is critical to the development of this country, which it is. I think they should have put in measures to make sure that we have enough power in this country. Because you cannot develop a country without electricity. Because it's the backbone of everything else that you do. So, new donor administration is putting in those measures. How are we doing it? We have opened up investment in the energy sector. Companies that feel they want to come and invest in this country to generate more power, they are welcome to do so. So that they'll be able to have a market in the form of the mining companies that are also coming in numbers. So we need to balance the scales here. So the country is open for investment in the energy sector. So companies that want to come and invest in the energy sector to supply electricity to the mining sector are already doing so. So why should we burden again the mining sectors with other responsibilities which are necessary? Let them focus on mining. Mining copper that we are discovering in huge quantities, mining sugilite, and the other minerals that we have. So let them focus on that and not other responsibilities that my brother is trying to propose. So, Madam Speaker, like I mentioned, this motion, I wished my brother had consulted some of us on the right, so that we agree and discuss behind the scenes, instead of just bringing these things here. And like you can see, even the second of the motion is also from the same side. It doesn't augur very well like that. So if you are going to do things that are going to be very serious, I think it's important to have consensus. My colleague, like I'm mentioning, next time, I know you like bringing motions. It's important that when you propose someone from the right second, to show that it is something that we are all in agreement. But when you do it that way, it shows that actually it's just a political move that you are trying to take. But you're not going to allow you to derail us from the right course that we are in. The last thing that I want to mention is, if this government were to allow such a situation, then it's like you're opening up a Pandora's box. The manufacturing sector will also come on board and say, even this manufacturing sector should also produce power for themselves. The agricultural sector will also come on board and say, okay, those in agriculture should also produce power on their own. And then, where is ZESCO going to be? ZESCO depends for its income generation from the mining sector, because like my colleague had mentioned, 51% of the income for ZESCO comes from the mining sector. So when you do that, then it means ZESCO now is going to run out of business. There are so many people that are employed under ZESCO who have to be laid off. So, in conclusion, I'm saying this motion, my brother, is a BIT and it will not be supported. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Maybe just a guide. I think there are no rules attached to who can second. Anybody can come up with a motion and choose a seconder. It has to, it's not really when somebody from the left moves a motion, somebody from the right has to second. We are free to bring any motion, choose any seconder amongst ourselves. The Honorable Member for Uzakire.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to comment on the motion to urge these mining companies produce their own electricity. Madam Speaker, this is a very progressive motion. And it is a well-known fact, Madam Speaker, that 53% of the electricity produced by ZESCO is consumed by these mining companies. Today, the ZESCO managing director is on record trying to tell the 33% domestic users of electricity to leave the grid.
Imagine.
This is not progressive, Madam Speaker. Celebrating this statement is like ZESCO is celebrating its own death. This should not be allowed, Madam Speaker. Government, on the other hand, is preaching economic diversification. Meaning we need to diversify from copper dependence to other means. Means like manufacturing needs affordable energy.
Yes.
How can that happen? It won't happen, Madam Speaker. We should have policies that are coherent. Madam Speaker, these mining companies, I've heard from other debaters who are saying mining companies are key to ZESCO. In Usakile we are saying no, they are not key to ZESCO. They are a liability to ZESCO. Why? Because they don't pay a cost-reflective tariff. That's why in Usakile we are not supporting government is moving town to town in search of power to give these multinationals. These people, they come with sugar-coated investment like $2 million investment. In the end, they will leave us with gapping holes, pollution, damaged roads, and now 21 hours of road shading. What benefit are we getting from these mining multinationals? Nothing. I've also heard another debater who's saying mining companies are outsourcing their services. This is another aspect that should not be entertained. It was never there before. They never used to outsource. Our people used to have good salaries. Ever since outsourcing has come on board, it has brought casualization. It has brought underpayments. So these are issues that should not be entertained in the country.
Especially by Congo.
These people should produce their own power. For example, they've given an example here. Dangote is producing its own power. Mining is a long-term investment. They should have been ready. Then global trends like drought, these things are projected. They should have gotten ready. Going forward, Madam Speaker, solutions. Short-term measure. Mining companies should be allowed to import their own electricity. 100%, not 50%. They should import their own 100%. Because already we have evidence from these newspaper diggers. Page 2, Madam Speaker. The country director, First Quantum, he has indicated that mining companies are importing 65% of the electricity that they are using now. In dollars. So, it's better we allow them to import as they are waiting to construct their own, because where they are importing, they are paying a cost-reflecting tariff. But here, where they exist, they refuse. They are very resistant. They don't pay a cost-reflective tariff, so their liability.
Too much.
So, ZESCO MD should not celebrate that, because very shortly we will see a total collapse of ZESCO. Very soon, we will see ZESCO joining Indeni and Tazama, where now it will be turned as a common courier of electricity. That has happened to Tazama, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
A very sad development.
Very sad.
Very sad development.
Minister of Energy. Very sad.
The electricity that we are complaining about now, Madam Speaker, just when the UPND government came in power, one of their first decisions was to close Indeni, which saw us lose 105 megawatts. We should have had that 105 megawatts, Madam Speaker. So we need policies that will help. Once you allow those mining companies, Madam Speaker, to import the 100% of electricity, the 53% they are using from ZESCO will come to the people, which will help a patient in Usakire constituency who is using trachoma medicine, which is supposed to be kept under a particular temperature, to be saved.
Order,
It will
honorable
save
member.
a patient.
Order. There's an indication for a point of order. The honorable member for Kankoyo. What is your point of order?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 71, where the Speaker should give factual information on the closure of Indeni. The Speaker, the debater, Honorable Member for Sakire, is saying the UPND government closed Indeni when Indeni has been converted into an oil marketing company. So which Indeni was closed by the UPND government? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I had guided to say we should be very factual. However, the honorable minister, the one who is responding, would tackle that matter. You may continue, the honorable member for Chimwemwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Uzakire, sorry.
A diabetic patient in Usakire, Madam Speaker, who is using insulin again, which is supposed to be kept under a certain temperature, will be saved. A welder in Usakire, Madam Speaker, who have something to do. Those people are hand to mouth. A barber man. Those people with butcheries, Madam Speaker. Even in our homes, Madam Speaker, all the very which were bought in advance, it has gone rotten. In this biting economy, Madam Speaker, the people of Zambia will be saved if this decision was to be taken. Madam Speaker, as I end, I support this progressive motion moved by the Honorable Member for Kamfinsa. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I'll get the last three, then the cabinet ministers will come in. The Honorable Member for Luena, Shiwangandu, and Shesheke. The Honorable Member for Luena.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity given to the people of Luena to debate this motion. Madam Speaker, I have read this motion several times to try and understand what it's all about. It says, request large-scale mining companies to produce electricity for their production. Madam Speaker, where have you heard a government going around requesting companies? What kind of a government would be operating on the basis of requests? There is no country where things are done by a government by writing love letters to companies to request. Companies operate, governments run through laws and regulations. But Madam Speaker, the mover doesn't ignore that reality I've just mentioned. He says that this House urges the government to revise mining regulations to provide for large-scale mining companies to produce at least 50% of electricity needed for their production. He is now upping the scale, says government must revise the mining regulations. Madam Speaker, there is nothing in the current mining regulations that stops mines from producing their own electricity. Absolutely nothing. So there is no regulations to be revised.
So, Madam Speaker, this motion, if the colleagues who have brought this motion and the ones who are supporting it had just taken time to read the mining regulations as they stand today, they would have realized there is no restriction. In fact, one of the supporters, my brother, Honorable Member for Sakiri, just said a few minutes ago that mines are importing electricity. All right? And yet he's saying in the same breath that these mines should be allowed to import. What a contradiction, Madam Speaker. So they are urging the government to do things that are already being done. And Madam Speaker, the current open access policy that has been approved by the government, Madam Speaker, has gone way beyond just the mining companies. It says anyone is free to invest in power production in this country. And what they do not use for their production, they can sell to the national grid for everybody else to tap in. So, Madam Speaker, this motion, I wouldn't even call it a BID, Madam Speaker. It's a completely frivolous motion that really had no business being brought and being entertained by this House. But that as it may be, we are entertaining it because it has been processed accordingly. Madam Speaker, one of the speakers who was supporting this motion went on to talk about load shedding and gave some numbers about if we have reduced the exports, what should be the current shortfall, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this government, not too long ago, the Minister of Energy
Order. As the time is 16:40 hours, I suspend business for 20 minutes for
Good afternoon and thank you for still being with us on Parliament Television. The House has taken a 20 minutes break, and at the time business was being suspended for the 20 minutes break, on the floor of the House was Luwena, Member of Parliament, Mr. Muvita Anapoka, contributing or debating to a private member's motion that has been moved by Kamfinsa, Member of Parliament, Mr. Christopher Kangombe, titled Request Large-Scale Mining Companies to Produce Electricity for Their Production. That this House urges the government to revise mining regulations to provide for large-scale mining companies to produce at least 50% of electricity needed for their production. And so far we've seen quite a number of members of Parliament debate to this private members' motion, and so we do expect Mr. Anakoka to continue with his debate when business resumes after the break.
Absolutely, and we expect ministers also to respond to this particular debate that's on the floor of the House just after the break. And so earlier on, when business resumed, the First Deputy Speaker did recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Shuttle Private School Limited and visitors from the Citizens of Democratic Governance in Lusaka District. And of course the House did consider 3 questions for oral answer under Standing Order number 80. Just now we take a break. Stay tuned.
You don't need to suffer from load shedding anymore. Liveltech is here to save the day. Imagine this. You're in the middle of an important task and boom, power cut. Frustrating, right? Well, not anymore. Introducing Liveltech, your go-to for advanced energy storage solutions. With Liveltech, you can store electricity and use it whenever you need it. Homes, schools, businesses, Liveltech powers them all. Our commitment to quality is unmatched, backed by a 10-year warranty. Picture this: happy families, productive businesses, and uninterrupted power supply. That's the Liveltech promise. So, why worry about power cuts? Choose Liveltech and embrace a future of energy independence. Contact us today to learn more. Liveltech, your trusted solar experts.
These are youth parliamentarians converged at Grand Palace Hotel to discuss effective communication, leadership, social media communication and mentorship. The overall objective of the training workshop was to train members of the Zambia Youth Parliamentarians Caucus, ZYPC, on effective communication and enable them mentor other young people who wish to become parliamentarians. During the official opening of the workshop, Second Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Moses Moyo, MP, said that effective communication is critical to parliamentarians' work. This was in a speech read on his behalf by Teji Member of Parliament, who is ZYPC Vice Chairperson, Mr. Twambo Mutinta.
Participating in such capacity building programs is essential in shaping your skills and the qualities which are relevant to your work and in your individual capacities as members of Parliament. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, and the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA, for partnering with the National Assembly of Zambia through this caucus in organizing this workshop. Honorable members, you agree with me that effective communication is a cornerstone for quality leadership. In addition, effective communication, particularly for you as representatives of the people, it leads to understanding, building trust, and it fosters meaningful engagements that are crucial in your day-to-day work as members of Parliament.
Honorable Moyo urged members of Parliament to work with cooperating partners and ensure that the strategic plan is fully implemented.
I urge you, honorable members, working with our cooperative partners to ensure that this strategic plan is fully implemented so that the youth out there, they realize the benefits of having this important caucus.
And Deputy Clerk Procedure, Mr. Stephen Kawembe, said the caucus gives